LWB344 Teach the Class video, the Marrakesh Treaty.
The Marrakesh Treaty was adopted on 28 June 2013, an international treaty adopted with the sole purpose of ending the book famine faced by people who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise print disabled. It is estimated only between 1 and 7% of the world's books are ever transcribed or converted to a format that those who are visually impaired or print disabled are capable of reading. The treaty attempts to circumvent copyright issues in two manners. The first by requiring those who are signatories to the treaty to legislate an exception to copyright law for visually impaired and print disabled people. The object of this is to ensure that those who are visually impaired or print disabled may without permission convert the books to a format that these people are capable of reading. This exception is required to be subjected to various stringent obligations to ensure the ongoing protection of the rights of the copyright holder, including restricting those who may produce, handle, import, or export these documents. The second imposition from the treaty enforces a requirement to allow for the import and export of accessible versions of books and other copyrighted works, again without copyright holder permission. The purpose of this exception is to allow for the free transmission of accessible books from those who have more substantial production programs to countries where availability is less common. Fundamentally, the treaty intends to maximize access and minimize cost. A beneficiary under Article 3 extends beyond visually impaired people to any individual suffering a disability that interferes with their effective reading of printed material. Under Article 2A, the works subject to the treaty include literary and artistic works in the forms of text, notation, or illustrations, whether published or otherwise made publicly available in the media. Article 2B permits whichever format will provide access to the work as feasibly and comfortably as a person without visual impairment or other print disability. This is integral in ensuring that the method of reproduction is not restricted such that it excludes certain disabled persons. Article 2C defines an authorised entity as a government or non-profit organisation that makes accessible copies of works and limits distribution of those copies to persons who suffer a bona fide disability. There are an estimated 285 million people who are blind or visually impaired, with 90% of these living in low-income settings. Access to the written world is an imperative right of individual humans. For an individual who suffers a print disability or visual impairment, it is essential that literature remains available to them to ensure that they are able to complete education programs, achieve success in the workplace, and not least to participate in the leisurely activity of reading. Unfortunately, while 83 nations have assented to the treaty, only 13 have ratified it into law. The treaty requires 20 nations to ratify it in order for it to come into effect. Digitisation of subject works through organisations like Internet Archive offers the cheapest and most consistent method of producing these materials and providing them to those who do not have access. It is a fundamental right of a human to have access to all materials that any other individual may have access to. To fail to provide such material would be paramount to ensuring that disabled persons are further marginalised. Thank you.
Created using Powtoon.